Bree, we are standing by a very good friend of yours.
Right, we have Willie Brennan and his daughter Chartee. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. So Willie had reached out to me last week, and he wanted to share his him and his daughter's recovery story. And so Willie, I'm just going to hand it over to you. If you could just take us from just the beginning on how this all started for you and your family.
Thank you very much, Bree. Thank you very much, Chris. Full disclosure, I just want to get it out there in front, but my wife is the director of Department of Youth Affairs in this administration, and at no point and at no time is this what we're going to talk about, my daughter and I, have anything to do with the administration, supportive of the administration in terms of campaign and politics. This is going to be a raw, real, if you will, testimony, if you will, commentary on what we went through and how it affected us as a family. This has nothing to do with her and her work. This has everything to do with her as a wife and a mother. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay, no problem.
So my daughter and I asked her after we both had recovered, I asked her would she be willing to go on and do an awareness campaign, island-wide, media-wide, social media-wide, to get the message out there of what we went through. And she agreed. So I reached out to Sabrina. And so I'm going to let her go ahead and talk first and talk about her story, and then I'll come in afterwards. And this is my daughter, Chartee Brennan.
Morning,
Hi,
Shartie.
good morning. Thanks for having us. I just want to start. My dad and I feel responsible to share my story. To remind people how serious this is, especially coming from me. I'm part of the younger demographic, and it did affect our family in ways that was just we didn't expect. It was very unpredictable. So I tested positive on August 6th. And overall, it was a very terrifying experience. I didn't, my symptoms came a little bit later. They came, it was different every day. I started out with bad headaches and the loss of smell, the loss of taste. And then it got really bad when I started having my muscle and joint aches. Those are probably the worst. They were pretty unbearable. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit. And then later, started to get worse because I have asthma, and it started to affect how I was breathing every day. And it was just very unpredictable. We didn't know how it was going to affect me. I know my parents were very scared because of my asthma, and I was scared too. But yeah, and then getting sick, that was really hard for me. Being by myself was really hard, but what was especially hard was being isolated in a room by myself. Only talking to my parents through text or phone. It was really difficult for us, especially during the night. We don't know how it could change, and there were some nights where I didn't feel good at all, and I just didn't really know what to do. But I know my body, so I got through the night. I had my asthma medication, and it obviously all worked out. And
How long were you sick?
Well, I was isolated for 18 days, but I think for the most part, I wasn't feeling too good for about 7 of those days. Those were probably 3 days were really hard for me. The body aches, the muscle aches, those were the worst, and the headaches, and just waking up at night and just having a hard time breathing, not knowing or just knowing it just wasn't right. My lungs were working a lot harder than they normally do. It was hard for me to catch my breath sometimes. But my dad and I, our symptoms were very mild. We don't want to diminish what others are going through, because it's very obvious that this affects people, families differently. And I just want to say our families, thoughts and prayers go out to everyone. Everyone needs the support. My dad and I were really lucky to have the support of my family and our close friends. They really helped us. My mom and my sister especially, they gave us food and water and our vitamins every day. And it was hard being in that room completely helpless. Also, the anxiety and the guilt I felt, not knowing the results of my family and my friends, and if I had given it to them. And then finding out that I gave it to my dad took a toll on me. You know, it really broke me. My dad he always takes care of me, and just getting him sick and seeing him sick, it was really tough for me and terrible. And I don't wish that experience on anyone.
You said you were in that demographic. I'm assuming you mean the 19 to 39 years old group that we've seen this peak in cases recently. Do you know how you got infected with a coronavirus? Can you share that?
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't think we can know just how, how common it is. I mean, not common, but how much it has increased over the past couple of weeks. I feel like I could have got it from anyone, randomly. No, I don't know. I wasn't called that I was in contact with anyone. I chose to get tested because when I saw a company put up a letter that they had an employee test positive, and I had been there in the last weeks that they posted it. So I just decided to get tested with my family. But I don't think there's any way of knowing where I could have got it at this point.
But you were practicing all of the social distancing. You were wearing the mask and, washing your hands. You were doing all of that, and then just all of a sudden you tested positive.
I was, but I have to admit, in the beginning, the first lockdown, I was very cautious. I was very scared with my asthma. I was afraid to leave my house. But as things start to open back up, I admit I must have got a little too comfortable at some point. I guess there could have been anything. I could have touched something that it was just unlucky, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
And well, I mean, you're not alone.
Right.
A lot of people got a little too comfortable just when you look at the numbers.
Right. Especially in your demo, and what we have heard public health and the doctors say is that the people in your demo are catching it and spreading it to other people. So it must have been devastating for you when you found out that you passed it on to your father.
Yeah. It was hard. I never see my dad. I mean, I see my dad sick, but it's never because I give it to him. And that was terrifying, and, like everyone says, you don't really know how the virus can affect someone and how quickly it can change, especially overnight. So while I'm trying to get better and while I was trying to keep my spirits up in my room, of course, I'm worrying about my dad in the other room. I'm worrying how he's doing, but it's too late to call him. So, it was a terrible experience, and I just.
So Willie, how soon after, I guess, did you get sick after your daughter got sick, and how did you guys? I mean, if she was isolating, how did you get sick?
So what happened was when we all got tested, because she wanted to get tested, she was out places and she got news about that one place that sent out a letter, a public letter that someone in the restaurant tested positive. So out of support to all my family, my kids, my wife and I decided to be a part of the testing process. We wanted solidarity to show that we're all together supporting each other. So later that afternoon, the day we got tested, my daughter, maybe about 4 or 5 hours later, my daughter got the call. I was outside where I normally work outside in my shop on projects. And my daughter called and said, told my wife, she got the call. So my wife came out crying and hysterical, scared, told me she tested positive. So me, since I was outside, I wasn't wearing a mask. I'm in my safety bubble, if you will. I ran upstairs to my daughter's room and she was just sitting on the bed and in tears and so scared looking. So the father in me, the instinctive father in me, was only worrying about my daughter and to comfort her and letting her know we'll get through this. I went down and I hugged her and I just squeezed her real tight. I said, "Don't worry, we'll get through this. You're not gonna be alone. Mom and Dad are gonna be here. We'll help you. We'll be there for you." And 2 days later, I still tested negative. 2 days later is when I started and I got my first symptoms, which was Saturday the 8th. And it was back-to-back nights, the 8th and the 9th. I had mild fever and mild chills. The second night, on Sunday the 9th, I had a terrible, I'm a very, very physical person. You guys all know me, who I am. And I don't get bothered by aches and pains as much as other people. That's just my
La
nature.
panty.
This one pain in my right hip was totally the worst I've ever had in my life. It was like a broken bone in my body, and I couldn't sleep. So I knew already that it appeared that I was fighting the virus. And I went and I got tested on Tuesday, and I got the results on Wednesday that I was positive. So, everything changed from that moment. Everything changed in my life from that moment. The hardest thing is having your daughter. She was upstairs. My sister's house is vacant, so she has a master bedroom that's upstairs that she has her own private bath. And the hardest thing is going to sleep at night and not knowing if your daughter's going to wake up the next morning feeling worse, feeling better. You can hope that she feels better. So every morning we would call. My wife would be in another part of the house that she's completely quarantined from us. We all have different bathrooms. So we're very, very worried. And to go through every night, to go through every evening of not knowing what the morning is going to take. I wish nobody to go and deal with this emotional roller coaster that we had as a family. Me waking up in the morning, first thing on my mind at 3 a.m. is, I hope she's doing better. I didn't know if I was okay to go in her room since I was positive also, and help her and get a washcloth and bring her temperature down if she had a fever and give her medicine if she needed to be at her bedside. I couldn't do those things that you normally are able to do in the flu. And it was devastating. It was really the hardest thing of my life. And fortunate for me, and I'm going to get a little emotional. Fortunate for me, I had a very strong support group. My wife was there for both of us. My daughter was preparing food at my house, which is 100 feet away, and bringing it down 3 times a day. We were doing the drop the food off, the door knock, and wait 5 to 10 seconds before you open the door so that everybody's clear. And then putting the dishes out and sending a message, okay, my dishes are out, my laundry is out. I mean, this was very, very taxing on my family, my siblings who were there making us hot soup, my in-laws dropping us off food. I mean, this thing was not just limited to my daughter, my wife, and I in the household. It affected and extended way out to people that were so scared for us. But nobody could do anything. You know what really saved us, Bree and Chris, is the video call. We were able to video call my daughter as much as we wanted to on a chat, me, my wife, and her. And it was just that video call that I could look in her eyes, I could hear in her voice whether she was being overwhelmed and didn't want to tell us, or truly she was battling it and she was getting better. And maybe the 5th or 6th day into her coronavirus ordeal, I saw in her eyes one day, there was a little glow, and I made a joke. I said, "Man, you look so good today." And she started to smile. And that was the most rewarding thing I ever experienced of this whole thing. It's just seeing my daughter smile. And it was rough, man. It was freaking rough. And I wish what I went through on nobody. I don't want anybody to walk the shoes that I walked. And I'm very sorry I'm being emotional, but it was tough, man. It was really tough. Sorry, really sorry.
Don't be sorry. We cry
Was
all the
there-
time on this show.
Was there any point in this process where you felt, or either one of you felt like, I'm not sure I'm going to make it through this, and or had to go to the
Yes.
hospital?
There was that moment. My wife and I talked about it, and we said, "Hey, we're not going to wait until it's too late for our daughter. When we see that it's something that she cannot manage, and we see there's something wrong, we're going to call the hospital. We're going to take her up there. We're going to not take her up there. Sorry, we're going to call the ambulance. They're going to take her up there. We want her to get the best care, and if we cannot give it to her, then we're going to do that." And we reached out to 311, and that's actually what saved us, 311, because the nurse on 311, we told her about what my daughter was experiencing, and they knew that she was asthmatic because we told her, and they knew that she had a nebulizer. They just said, "Go get a prescription for your medication, for your nebulizer and your inhaler, and put her on that as many times a day as she can tolerate." And that really, really helped. And so as she was starting to get better, starting to see the smile, no, I'm sorry, no smile yet. I felt that I was getting to be too much on my wife and my daughter with food, that I wanted them to focus their attention on Shartie at the house. I reached out to the ambulance and I had them pick me up and take me to the hospital. I went to the hospital. I was in the emergency room as a COVID patient for about 6 hours, 5 hours. They did the X-ray. They did the blood. They drew blood. They did the EKG. They swabbed me again. I tested positive while I was there. This was Tuesday, on about the 18th, and but I was still feeling strong. I had a fever, 102. They gave me Tylenol. But at the end of that whole thing, the doctor came in and said, "You, you are not a candidate. You are not a patient that should be admitted. Just go home, continue doing what you're doing. You will get the medication that you need." And they told me to use the nebulizer. So that was so reassuring to hear it from a doctor that I was doing okay. And the funny part is I had to drive myself home. So I felt, wow, if they'll allow me to drive myself home, I must be really doing better. So can you imagine that? Your siblings hearing that, your children hearing that their dad went to the hospital and not knowing what's going to happen. All those things, the big picture. And I'm being real, I'm being raw. It was very, very hard to deal with. And like I said again, for all the people that think that there's more important things than worrying about health and safety of your family and your kids, that want to open up the economy, I don't blame them for feeling that way, but take a step back. Take a step back and walk in the shoes that I walked in for 14 days. And if you need to talk to me, if anybody wants to, company wants to talk to me so I can really give them the magnitude on how this affects everything and everybody, I'm willing to do that. My daughter are willing to do whatever it takes, Sabrina and Chris, to help spread the message, to try to get people to understand that this is taxing. It is really taxing. I'm a physical person, and I worked out before this thing, and it just got to me emotionally. It's the uncertainty.
Right, and William, that's what I want to key on is where we're getting these in the comments. We've heard so many different COVID stories, and people get hit by these symptoms differently. So when you guys both had it, was there that moment where you thought, "Am I going to be one of those people who has to go in?" Especially, I mean, Chartee being asthmatic. I mean, that's one of the pre-existing conditions that people have that leads them to really struggle with COVID. So what was that uncertainty like, not knowing which COVID you were going to get?
And it's funny you bring that up. Shartie and I were in different ends of the spectrum on symptoms. I had mild fever and I had chills. I only had one night of body aches. She had severe body aches and she had difficulty breathing. So we were total opposites. And yes, you're right. Is that an indication that she's going to get hit worse? Is that an indication that I'm going to get hit worse? So yeah, the feeling of, am I going to be the one that has to go to the hospital, or is she going to be the one? We need to be prepared. And I told my wife, I say, although she's going to be alone without family, it's just like she's upstairs in the house we're living in, but at least she'll have the care. And that's the most we could do at that time. Believe it or not, you're handcuffed, your hands are tied as a parent, as someone that's trying to render medical assistance to the patient and to your loved ones. Your hands are tied. And every night we worried, are we going to have to take her to the hospital? Am I going to have to go to the hospital? And that was the most difficult time, Chris, was the uncertainty. Everything was uncertain, the whole thing.
Is there any other family members living with you guys in the house aside from Melanie?
Oh yeah, our youngest daughter. She was our cook. Bless her soul, love her so much. She was preparing 3 meals a day for us. She was washing things that needed to be washed. We had laundry down at the house we're staying. My wife was doing it there, but she was doing all the other things, buying us fruit. And even at that, sending her out to replenish the supplies. I was so worried about her. Here I am in isolation, worried about my daughter, and then I have to worry about my daughter that's going out to shop because we need the necessities. And then, like I said, my in-laws, my siblings, they started to drop us off food. They did some shopping, and so they were helping us. So that helped us a lot, and it helped me a lot because now I could focus on just getting my daughter well. And that was my main goal, is getting her well.
Chartee, you talked about feeling the guilt that you could pass it to your dad, and when you did, was there ever a conversation that you guys had where you said, "Dad, I'm sorry"?
I did tell him sorry when he first told me they didn't really tell me a lot. I think they wanted me to just focus on getting better. And I noticed my dad's background. He was in the same house that I was, and he wasn't at our house. And I was like, Dad, why are you down here? And he said, well, I tested positive earlier today. And I remember I just said, you know, I think I texted him, I'm so sorry. And he called me and he's like, there's nothing to be sorry about. You know, there's no way of knowing who has it, who doesn't. So yeah, but even though he said there's no need to be sorry, of course, I felt so guilty. Up to this day, I'm so, you know, I feel so bad. Now I don't even want to go anywhere. I don't want to bring it home. I don't know if I could get it a second time. I don't know if I can give it to him again. So
Are you both still isolated, or are you guys back together?
we're in our house.
Uh-huh.
I'm in my room right now. He's downstairs, but we do see each other.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
We are released from isolation from public health, and last Saturday was the 20th day. And the significance of the 20th day CDC guidelines is that if you get the symptoms and you start feeling better, then 3 days after you're symptom free is when they normally release you from isolation, which was for me was the week prior to that, which would have been around my 14th day. But it also says, CDC says, but you should be 100% symptom free, for the average person, by the 20th day. So the 20th day was significant for us both, so that we were able to come back into our house and know that we were feeling and the virus was completely out of us. And it is. We're going about our everyday life now in our house, outside our house, but yeah, we're 100% out of isolation and symptom free.
Do you guys feel like you dodged a major bullet?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The worst thing could have happened to either one of us. Absolutely. So fortunate and pleased and blessed, and all the prayers from friends, and even my macho friends, Chris and Sabrina, were sending me prayers and all that. Even my retired police officer friends were reaching out to us. And
Hey, get better, guy.
Just for people who don't know who Willie is, he was the former head of SWAT.
Yeah.
Okay, he was
Hardest of the hard.
tough.
Also, Guam Major League. So
Yeah,
for
football. That's right.
For those guys to reach out to us was so comforting, and I thank them every day. We get on we get on video calls at night now. We start telling jokes, and I tell them, each and every one of them, how thankful I am to have friends and a support group around me, because that's what gets you through it. But that's what I mean when I say it. It's a big extended virus that affects you in many aspects, and if we can do anything, absolutely anything, to go out and spread the word, thank you for this opportunity, for this platform, but if we can do anything to help people understand the gravity of this, the severity of this, how much it's going to affect your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, and your uncle, then please spread the word, use this on all your social media platforms, and get this message out there, because we don't wish this onto anybody. I don't want anybody to walk in my footsteps. I really don't.
Chartee, you talked about being part of that younger demo, so we know they're watching. What's your message to the people your age?
Like we said, it's the virus is so unpredictable. Doesn't matter your age, really anything. You don't know how it's going to affect you, and it's a domino effect after that. If it affects you, then it affects everyone around you. I think just I can't tell anyone what to do, but be safe and be careful and be smart. Yeah.
Stay home. Thought I'd add that in there.
Well, thank you,
Willie,
Shartie, for sharing your story. Willie, was there any final comments you wanted to make?
Yes, please. Like Chris just said, stay home unless it's absolute emergency that you must leave, or necessity. And if you do positively have to leave your home, like you folks are setting such an awesome example. Wear your mask. Priority number 1, wear your mask. Priority number 2, wash your hands, and then social distance. In my opinion, in that order of significance, wear your mask, please, and don't take it for granted. And if you see somebody that's not wearing a mask, don't be confrontational. Don't walk up to them. Just walk away. You cannot heal the world, everybody in the world. So don't put yourself in the position to get the virus again. Just walk away, go out, go down another aisle, go down somewhere else. But you know, you're gonna see more people wearing their masks than not wearing a mask. So just remember that there's other people also that are afraid. But yeah, that's all I can say is wear your mask and wash your hands.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you, Chartee.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
having
for sharing
us.
your story.
Right on. God bless you guys, and stay
Thank
home.
you.
Right on. 8:45. We'll take a quick break, and we're coming back with the executive director of Gora Ray Taposniak. Good talk there, Bree.